The warning sirens blared across the bridge of the Times, Horizon's Edge Times, as Captain Taejin stared at the damaged ship floating in the darkness ahead. It looked nothing like any human vessel. The hull was smooth and crystalline, pulsing with faint blue light. Sections of it were torn open, exposing strange, organic-looking machinery inside. Debris floated around it like a cloud of metal and glass. "Should we help them?" asked Ji-woo from the pilot's seat. Her hands hovered over the controls, ready to move closer or retreat. Taejin nodded slowly. "We came out here to explore and find new life." "Well, we found it. Send them a signal on all frequencies. Let them know we want to help." Hyun-woo worked at the engineering station, his fingers dancing across the console. "Captain, I'm picking up massive energy readings from that ship. Whatever hit them, it hit them hard. Their power core is unstable." "Life signs?" Taejin asked. "Yes, sir. Faint but there. At least 20 beings inside." Taejin stood from his chair. "Ji-woo, bring us alongside. Hyun-woo, prepare the docking tube. Hae-won, get medical supplies ready. Sang-woo, suit up with me. We're going over there." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had trained for years together, but nothing had prepared them for this moment. Humanity had reached the stars only 50 years ago. In all that time, they had found empty worlds and ancient ruins, but never living aliens. Until now. The docking tube connected with a metallic thud. Taejin and Sung-woo stood at the airlock, wearing their bulky exploration suits. The door hissed open, revealing the alien ship's interior. The air that rushed out made their suit sensors scream warnings. Toxic, highly acidic, lethal to humans within minutes. "Seals holding," Sang-woo reported. "But Captain, if our suits breach, then we work fast," Taejin said. He stepped through the doorway. The alien ship's corridors were beautiful and terrifying. The walls seemed to be made of living crystal that glowed softly. Strange symbols covered every surface. The gravity felt wrong. Too light, making each step feel bouncy and uncertain. They followed the life signs deeper into the ship. They found the survivors in what looked like a command center. The aliens were unlike anything from human imagination. One stood nearly 3 meters tall, but looked fragile, like it was made of colored glass. Its body was translucent, and Taejin could see what might be organs pulsing inside it. Several smaller aliens huddled together, their bodies covered in what looked like soft fur that shimmered with rainbow colors. All of them were injured. The tall, crystalline alien made a sound like wind chimes. Taejin's suit translator crackled to life, struggling to process the language. "Danger. Vrathul. Run. Death comes. We're here to help," Taejin said clearly, hoping the translator worked both ways. "We're humans. From the planet Earth. We have medical supplies." The alien stared at him with multiple eyes that seemed to shift colors. It made more chiming sounds. This time, the translator worked better. "Humans? Scanning. Impossible. You come from... No. The readings must be wrong. Class 1-2, Deathworld. No intelligent life survives. Class 1-2. Sang-woo had moved to help the smaller aliens. "Captain, their injuries are severe. We need to get them to our ship. Hae-won can treat them there." The tall alien swayed, clearly weakening. "You must leave this sector. The Vrathul will return. They consume everything. The Galactic Union fights them. But we lose. World after world falls. You must take your species and hide. Run far away." "We don't run," Taejin said firmly. He stepped closer to the alien. "Let us help you. Then you can tell us about this threat." Over the next hour, they evacuated all 20 aliens to the Times Horizon's Edge asterisk. Hae-won worked frantically in the medical bay. The alien biology was completely foreign to her, but she adapted quickly. She used scanners to understand their basic systems, then treated wounds with techniques that made the conscious aliens watch in horror. She cleaned wounds aggressively, used what they considered brutal stitching methods, and injected medicines that made them cry out in pain. "Your medicine hurts," one of the smaller aliens whimpered. Haywan's expression was gentle but firm. "Yes, but you will live." On Earth, we learned that survival matters more than comfort. The tall, crystalline alien, who identified himself as Ambassador Velthar of the Galactic Union, sat with Tae-Jin in the ship's conference room. Between them floated a holographic display showing a map of the galaxy. Huge sections were marked in red. "These are the worlds we have lost to the Vrathul in the past 10 cycles," Velthar explained. His voice through the translator sounded tired and sad. "They are a hive mind, a parasite species that consumes other beings and adds them to their collective. They learn from every species they destroy. They adapt to our weapons, our strategies. Everything we try fails." Tae-Jin studied the map. The red sections were spreading like a disease. "How does the Union fight them?" "We have the combined fleet. Ships from thousands of species. Weapons that can destroy planets. Shields that can stop stars. But the Vrathul do not fight with honor or logic. They throw endless numbers at us. They sacrifice millions to learn our weaknesses. They..." Velthar's crystalline body dimmed. "They fight like animals." Something in Tae-Jin's expression changed. Sang-woo, sitting nearby, noticed it and smiled slightly. "Ambassador," Tae-Jin said carefully, "you said our world is a Class 1-2 death world. What does that mean?" Velthar's eyes shifted to a color that might have been surprise. "The scans show extreme gravity, violent weather, aggressive fauna, deadly diseases, toxic plants, and atmospheric instability. Most Union species evolved on Class 1 or Class 2 worlds. Peaceful, stable, safe. We cannot imagine surviving on a Class 1-2 world. But we did survive," Tae-Jin said. "We didn't just survive. We thrived. We became the dominant species. Do you know how?" Velthar shook his head slowly. "We learned to fight like animals," Tae-Jin said. "We learned to never give up. We learned to adapt or die. Ambassador, you said the Vrathul fight without honor or logic. Well, Earth taught us the same lessons. If you're fighting for survival, there is no honor. There is only winning or dying." Velthar was silent for a long moment. "You wish to help us fight the Vrathul?" "Yes. The Union Council will not accept help from a Class 1-2 species. They will fear you. You must understand. In all of galactic history, no species from a world more dangerous than Class 6 has ever reached space travel. You are an impossibility, an anomaly. They will see you as potentially more dangerous than the Vrathul." Tae-Jin stood and walked to the viewport. Outside, stars stretched endlessly in all directions. Somewhere out there, people were dying. Worlds were falling. And the galaxy was losing because they had forgotten how to be dangerous. "Then we'll prove we're here to help, not conquer," Tae-Jin said. "Contact your Union Council. Tell them Earth offers its assistance. One ship, my crew. Let us show you what Deathworlders can do." Velthar looked at the human captain for a long time. Finally, he chimed softly. "I will send your message. But Captain Tae-Jin, I must warn you. If you truly come from a death world, if you truly know only survival without mercy, then what you are offering may save the galaxy. Or it may doom it to something worse than the Vrathul." Tae-Jin turned back to face the ambassador. His expression was calm, but his eyes were hard. "Ambassador, humanity has fought wars among ourselves for thousands of years. We nearly destroyed our own world many times. But we learned something important. The capacity for violence and the choice for peace can exist in the same being. We're dangerous. Yes, but we're dangerous by choice, not by nature. We choose when to fight and when to protect. Right now, we choose to protect." Outside the viewport, The damaged alien ship finally exploded, its unstable core giving out. The flash of light illuminated Taejin's face for a moment, before fading into darkness. The message had been sent to the Union Council. Now they could only wait and prepare for what came next. In the medical bay, Hae-won continued treating the alien survivors. They watched her with fearful fascination as she worked with an efficiency and aggression that seemed impossible to them. They did not yet understand that on Earth, every doctor was a warrior against death itself, and humans did not surrender easily, not even to death. The war for the galaxy had found new soldiers. The question remained whether the galaxy was ready for them. The Union defense fleet hung in orbit above Thresh-Nar like a crown of steel and light. 300 ships from dozens of species formed perfect geometric patterns in space. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering, sleek and efficient, designed by civilizations that had mastered space travel for millennia. Among them, the Time's Horizon's edge times looked crude and blocky, like a child's toy next to works of art. "They don't trust us," Jiwoo said quietly from her pilot station. "Look at the formation. They've positioned us at the rear, away from the main battle line." Taejin nodded. He had expected this. The Union had debated for 3 days before allowing even one human ship to join the defense. Half the council wanted to send the humans away immediately. The other half was desperate enough to try anything. In the end, desperation won, but barely. "Let them watch," Taejin said. "When the fighting starts, they'll understand." Sang-woo checked his tactical displays. "Captain, I'm reading energy signatures at the edge of the system. Multiple contacts. Big ones. Here they come," Hyun-woo muttered, his fingers already working to redirect power to shields and weapons. The Vrathul fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a swarm of insects. There was no formation, no pattern, just hundreds of organic-looking ships that pulsed and writhed as they accelerated toward Thresh-Nar. Each ship was different, clearly built from the remains of consumed species and twisted into something new and horrible. The Union fleet commander, a being called High Admiral Treshkan, broadcast on all channels. His voice was calm and measured. "All ships. Assume defensive formation. Beta 7. Maintain spacing of 10,000 kilometers. Target the lead vessels with synchronized fire on my mark. Precision is key. We cannot afford collateral damage." The Union fleet moved like a carefully choreographed dance. Each ship knew exactly where to be, exactly when to fire. It was beautiful and calculated, and completely inadequate. The Vrathul didn't care about formations or tactics. They simply charged forward, absorbing the first wave of Union fire without slowing. Some ships exploded, but the debris crashed into other Vrathul vessels and was absorbed, making them larger and stronger. The hive mind learned and adapted in real time. "They're going to lose," Jiwoo said, watching the battle unfold. "The Union is fighting like it's a chess game. The Vrathul are fighting like a flood." Taejin opened a channel to the flagship. "High Admiral Treshkan, request permission to engage." There was a long pause. Then, "Negative. Human ship. Maintain position. This is a coordinated defense. We cannot have unauthorized vessels disrupting our formation." On the tactical display, 3 Union ships exploded simultaneously. The Vrathul had learned their firing patterns and struck at the exact moment between volleys. "Request permission to engage," Taejin repeated, his voice harder now. "Negative. Stay in position or leave the system." Taejin looked at his crew. Hyun-woo was running calculations. Sang-woo had weapons ready. Hae-won had already prepared the medical bay for casualties. Ji-woo met his eyes and nodded once. "Sorry, Admiral," Taejin said. "We didn't come here to watch." He cut the channel. "Ji-woo, take us in. Full speed. Sang-woo, weapons free. Target the biggest ones." The Time's Horizon's edge times broke formation and accelerated toward the Vrathul fleet. Behind them, The Union channel erupted with angry voices demanding they return to position. Taejin ignored them all. "Contact in 30 seconds, Ji-woo announced. Her hands moved across the controls with practiced ease. "Captain, their formation is too tight. We can't get through without taking heavy fire." "Then we make them move?" Taejin said. "Hyun-woo, redirect all power from rear shields to forward. Sang-woo, fire everything at that central cluster. I want their attention." The human ship opened fire with every weapon it had. Missiles, railguns, particle beams, everything humanity had developed in 50 years of space travel. The weapons were primitive compared to Union technology, but they hit with a ferocity that made the Vrathul swarm react. Dozens of ships turned toward the Time's horizon's edge asterisk. "Here they come," Sang-woo said calmly. Ji-woo's piloting was poetry written in violence. She spun the ship through incoming fire, using the enemy's own vessels as cover, accelerating and decelerating in patterns that would have killed most Union pilots from the G-forces alone. The internal dampeners screamed in protest. But they held. "How is she doing that?" A Union pilot, broadcasted by accident. "Those maneuvers should tear her ship apart." The Time's horizon's edge times crashed through the Vrathul formation, firing constantly. When weapons overheated, Hyun-woo vented them into space and kept them running past safety limits. When shields failed in one section, he redistributed power instantly, keeping them alive by milliseconds. The ship took damage that would have crippled a Union vessel, but the human ship kept fighting. "We've got their attention," Taejin said. "Now let's lead them into the Union firing line. Ji-woo, loop back toward the fleet. Make it look desperate." "Won't need to act much," Ji-woo grunted, wrestling with the controls as another impact rocked the ship. "We are desperate." They ran back toward the Union fleet with 50 Vrathul ships in pursuit. The Union forces hesitated, unsure whether to fire and risk hitting the human ship. But Taejin had counted on that hesitation. At the last moment, Ji-woo pulled up sharply, and the Time's horizon's edge times shot past the Union line with meters to spare. The Vrathul, unable to change course as quickly, flew directly into concentrated Union fire. Dozens exploded before they could react. "That's cheating," Sang-woo said with a slight smile. "That's called using the enemy's momentum against them," Taejin replied. "Something humans learned about 10,000 years ago. Now, let's do it again." For the next hour, the Time's horizon's edge times danced through the battlefield, drawing Vrathul vessels into kill zones, disrupting their formations, and creating chaos where there had been overwhelming force. The Union fleet slowly began to adapt, becoming more aggressive, taking risks they wouldn't have dared before. Then, everything went wrong. "Hull, breach on Deck 3, Hyun-woo announced. "Boarding pods attached to the port side. Vrathul are inside the ship." Taejin unbuckled from his chair. "Sang-woo, with me. Ji-woo, get us clear of the main fighting. Hyun-woo, seal all bulkheads. Hae-won, stay in medical and arm yourself." The Union channel crackled with voices. "Human ship. Your life signs are being overrun. Abandon vessel. We will retrieve you, if possible." "Negative," Taejin said, pulling on his combat suit. "We're handling it." The corridor outside the bridge was dark except for emergency lighting. Taejin and Sang-woo moved quickly but carefully, their magnetic boots keeping them stable in the fluctuating gravity. They could hear sounds ahead, wet and organic and wrong. The Vrathul had breached through the cargo bay. There were 12 of them, each one a nightmare of mixed body parts taken from consumed species. They moved with horrifying coordination, the hive mind directing them as one. Sang-woo raised his weapon. Contact. The firefight was brutal and close. The Vrathul were fast and vicious, but Taejin and Sang-woo had trained for this. Every human soldier trained for boarding actions, for close combat, for fighting in corridors and tight spaces. Earth's military history was full of such battles. When Sang-woo's rifle was torn from his hands, he drew a blade and kept fighting. When Tae-jin's suit was damaged and began leaking air, he sealed it with emergency foam and kept moving. The Vrathul fought with claws and teeth and acid. The humans fought with weapons and fists and sheer stubborn refusal to die. Outside the ship, the Union fleet watched in stunned silence as the human life signs on their scanners did the impossible. The Vrathul boarding party's life signs began disappearing one by one. "They're fighting them hand to hand," one Union officer whispered. "In close combat. How are they surviving? They're from a Class 1-2 world." Another replied quietly, "Everything there fights hand to hand. It's all they know." When the last Vrathul fell, Tae-jin and Sang-woo stood in the cargo bay, covered in various fluids, breathing hard. Hae-won rushed in with medical supplies. "You're both injured," she said, already scanning them. "Barely," Sang-woo grunted. "I've had worse in training." Tae-jin limped back to the bridge, leaving Hae-won to treat Sang-woo. On the view screen, he could see the battle was turning. The Vrathul were retreating, their numbers finally reduced enough that the Union fleet had gained the advantage. Threshnar was saved. High Admiral Treshkan's face appeared on the communication screen. He looked shaken. "Captain Tae-jin, you violated direct orders. You endangered the entire formation. Your tactics were reckless and unpredictable." Tae-jin waited for the inevitable dismissal. "And you saved this world," Treshkan continued. "Your actions turned the battle. We have never seen anyone fight like that. Never seen anyone survive like that. The Council will hear a full report." "Will that report recommend we leave?" Tae-jin asked. Treshkan was quiet for a long moment. "I do not know. What I do know is that you terrify me, Captain. Your species terrifies me. But perhaps that is what the galaxy needs right now. Something terrifying enough to frighten even the Vrathul." The channel closed. Ji-woo turned in her seat to look at Tae-jin. "So, did we prove ourselves or make things worse?" Tae-jin sank into his chair, exhausted. "Both, probably. But we're still here. And the planet below is still standing. That's enough for now." Hyun-woo pulled up damage reports. "Captain, we need serious repairs. We pushed every system past its limits. Then we repair," Tae-jin said. "And we get ready to do it all over again. This is just the beginning." Outside, the Union fleet began recovery operations. But every ship's sensors were now focused on the small, battered, human vessel that had changed everything. The galaxy was learning what a Deathworld species could do. And in government chambers across Union space, the real debate was just beginning about whether humanity was their salvation or their next nightmare. The message reached Earth 3 weeks after the Battle of Threshnar. It was broadcast on every channel, translated into every human language, and displayed on screens across the entire planet. Captain Tae-jin's face appeared, tired but determined, speaking directly to his home world. "Humanity. This is Captain Tae-jin of the Times Horizon's Edge ***. We have made contact with thousands of alien species united in something called the Galactic Union. They are at war with an enemy that threatens to consume the entire galaxy. They are losing. They asked us for help. I said yes. Now I'm asking you. Will you join us?" The response was immediate and overwhelming. Admiral Do-hyun stood in the military command center, watching the recruitment numbers climb. His aide said nervously, "We've received over 1 million volunteer applications in the first hour alone. The civilian networks are crashing from the traffic." Do-hyun had expected a strong response. But not this. "Screen them all. We need experienced personnel first. Pilots, engineers, soldiers, medics. But turn no one away who qualifies. This is the biggest thing humanity has ever faced." Around the world, people reacted in ways that would have shocked the Union observers. Retired soldiers came out of retirement. Factory workers trained to become ship crew. Scientists abandoned comfortable positions to join engineering teams. And the young Thousands upon thousands of young humans signed up, despite having no real understanding of what war in space would mean. Why are they so eager? Ambassador Velthar asked Du-hyun during a visit to Earth. The crystalline alien stood in the command center, his body reflecting the glow of 1,000 screens. Do they not understand? They might die? Du-hyun smiled grimly. Ambassador, humanity has been fighting wars since before we had written language. We've fought over resources, territory, ideas, and sometimes just because we forgot why we started. War is in our history, like water is in an ocean. We know exactly what we're volunteering for. But this is not your war, Velthar insisted. The Vrathul have never touched Earth. You could remain hidden. Safe, could we? Du-hyun turned to face the alien fully. If the Vrathul consume the entire galaxy, how long before they find us? Besides, you're missing something important. Humans don't wait for threats to arrive at our doorstep. We learned that lesson the hard way. Better to fight them far from home than on our own worlds. Within 3 months, humanity assembled its first deep space combat fleet. 75 warships, not as advanced as Union vessels but built with human philosophy. Redundant systems, heavy armor, weapons that could function, even when everything else failed. The ships were ugly by Union standards, all function and no beauty. But they were tough. Yuna was one of the lead engineers on the retrofit program. She worked 20-hour days redesigning Union ship components to work on human vessels, and vice versa. The Union builds everything to be efficient, she explained to her team. Single points of failure everywhere, because they assume their technology won't fail. We can't think like that. Everything needs a backup. Everything needs to survive damage. The Union liaison officers watched her work with growing concern. You're making the ships heavier, one complained. The mass will reduce speed and maneuverability. Yuna didn't even look up from her designs. I'm making them survivable. Speed means nothing if one hit kills you. These ships will take punishment and keep fighting. That's what matters. Hae-won returned to Earth briefly to train Union medics. She stood in front of a class of 20 alien medical officers, each from a different species. Today, I'm teaching you trauma care the human way. I warn you now. You will find our methods disturbing. She was right. The alien medics watched in horror as she demonstrated emergency procedures developed over centuries of human warfare. Aggressive wound cleaning, rapid amputation to prevent infection spread, drug dosages that would seem dangerous to species from peaceful worlds, pain management that prioritized keeping patients conscious and functional over keeping them comfortable. This is barbaric, one medic protested. You cause more trauma to prevent trauma. No, Hae-won said firmly. I cause pain to prevent death. There's a difference. On Earth, our emergency medicine was developed on battlefields, in disasters, in situations where perfect care wasn't possible. We learned to save lives with whatever we had available. You need to learn the same thing. Because perfect conditions don't exist in war. By the end of the training, the Union medics were shaken but educated. They had learned that human medicine wasn't cruel. It was realistic. And in war, realism saved lives. Meanwhile, human culture began spreading through Union space in unexpected ways. A human soldier named Jae-sung, stationed on a Union outpost, started playing music from his personal collection for his alien squadmates. They listened in fascination to what humans called rock music, war drums, and battle hymns. This is what you listen to? One alien asked, his translator struggling with the concept. This music is so aggressive, Jae-sung grinned. This is what humans listen to when we need courage. When we need to remember, we're strong. Every culture on Earth has battle music. We've been making songs about war for thousands of years. The music spread. Soon, human songs were playing in Union barracks across the galaxy. The aliens didn't always understand the words, but they felt the emotion, the defiance, the refusal to surrender. It gave them something they had been missing: fighting spirit. Human food followed the music, spicy dishes that made most aliens gasp in shock, preserved foods designed to last through long campaigns, even human alcohol, which many species found dangerously strong. How do you consume this? This? An alien officer asked Jae-sung, staring at a glass of whiskey. The chemical burn alone should be harmful. It is harmful, Jae-sung admitted. But we drink it anyway. Sometimes to celebrate, sometimes to mourn. Sometimes just to prove we can handle it. Everything humans consume is a little bit dangerous. Even our food. That's life on a death world. The combined human-Union fleet began joint training exercises. At first, it went poorly. The Union forces followed strict protocols, moved in perfect formations, and executed maneuvers with mathematical precision. The human forces were chaotic, aggressive, and unpredictable. Commanders on both sides complained constantly. Then they ran a combat simulation against a mock Vrathul fleet. The Union forces fought beautifully and lost within an hour. The human forces fought ugly and won. Barely, but won. The third attempt combined both approaches. Union precision with human aggression. Union technology with human durability. They won decisively. I'm beginning to understand, High Admiral Treshkan admitted to Admiral Do-hyun after watching the exercise. Your species doesn't follow our rules because you learned different rules. Rules written by a planet that tried to kill you. Exactly, Do-hyun said. The Union learned warfare as an intellectual exercise. Humans learned it as survival. Neither is better. But together, we're stronger than either alone. But not everyone in the Union agreed. Protests erupted on several Union worlds. Crowds of aliens gathered, holding signs that translated to messages like, "Deathworlders go home," and "We don't need monsters to fight monsters." A Union politician named Zal then became the voice of the opposition. He broadcast speeches across the Union network. These humans are dangerous. Today, they fight for us. Tomorrow they might fight against us. We are inviting predators into our homes. The Vrathul consume bodies. The humans might consume our civilization itself. Velthar, who had become humanity's strongest defender in the Union Council, responded publicly. I have stood beside humans in battle. I have watched them bleed to save our worlds. Yes, they are dangerous. Yes, they terrify me. But they chose to aim that danger away from us and toward our enemies. That choice matters. Judge them by their actions, not by their nature. The debate raged across the galaxy, but it became moot when the Vrathul launched their next major offensive. 3 systems fell in 1 week. The Union fleet was stretched impossibly thin. Desperate, the Council activated the combined human-Union fleet ahead of schedule. Tae-jin stood on the bridge of the Times Horizon's Edge asterisk, now serving as the flagship for the human contingent. Around his ship, 74 other human vessels waited. And beyond them, hundreds of Union ships. Different designs, different philosophies, but one purpose. All ships. This is Admiral Do-hyun. The voice came over the fleet channel. Today we face the enemy as one force. The Union brings knowledge, technology, and experience. Humanity brings endurance, aggression, and adaptability. Together, we are stronger than the sum of our parts. Today we prove that different species, from different worlds, can stand united. Today we show the Vrathul that the galaxy will not be consumed without a fight. Nice speech, Jiwoo muttered at her station. Think it'll work? Tae-jin watched the fleet begin moving into formation. Human ships and Union ships side by side, ready to face the darkness together. It has to work, because if we can't unite against a threat that wants to consume us all, then we don't deserve to survive. Dark thought, Captain. Sangwoo observed. We're from a dark world, Taejin replied. We think dark thoughts. But we also know how to find light in darkness. That's why we're here. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, heading toward the Vrathul advance. Behind them, across Union space and Earth alike, people watched and waited. The real war was about to begin. Not between Union and humans, but between all of them and extinction itself. Hyunwoo checked his systems one last time. All systems green, Captain. We're ready. Good, Taejin said quietly. Because, ready or not, here we go. The fleet emerged from FTL at the edge of the Corvin system. Before them waited the largest Vrathul fleet anyone had ever seen. Thousands of ships, maybe tens of thousands, all pulsing with hungry, horrible life. Contact the fleet, Taejin ordered. Tell them what we humans say before every major battle. See you on the other side. And mean it. The message spread through the combined fleet. Union and human together, preparing to face the storm. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when different worlds, different species, different philosophies united against a common enemy. The age of separation was ending. The age of the unified galaxy was about to be born in fire. The Corvin Nebula was beautiful and deadly. Massive clouds of ionized gas glowed in shades of purple and green, illuminated by dying stars at the nebula's heart. Radiation storms swept through the region constantly, strong enough to fry ship systems and cook crew members alive. Gravitational anomalies appeared and disappeared without warning, capable of tearing vessels apart. It was exactly the kind of place where no sane military force would make a stand, which was exactly why the Vrathul chose it. They're using the nebula as a fortress, Admiral Du-hyun said, studying the tactical display. They know we can't operate effectively in there. Our ships will fail. Our crews will sicken from the radiation. They'll pick us apart. High Admiral Treshkan's crystalline form dimmed with worry. Then we cannot fight them there. We must fall back, establish a defensive line at a safer position, and give them time to fortify further? Du-hyun shook his head. No. If we retreat now, they'll spread through the entire sector. Millions will die. We have to end this here. But we cannot survive in that environment, Treshkan insisted. The radiation levels alone would kill most of my crews within hours. Our ships are not designed for such conditions. Taejin had been listening quietly. Now he spoke up. Admiral Treshkan, what radiation levels are we talking about? Treshkan brought up the data. Numbers scrolled across the display, showing radiation measurements that made the Union officers flinch. Taejin studied them carefully, then looked at his crew. Ji-woo was running calculations. Hyun-woo was checking ship specs. Sang-woo was already planning tactical approaches. They all nodded. Admiral, Taejin said. Those radiation levels are high, but they're not impossible. Earth has natural radiation zones that strong. We've built machines that work in worse. Our people have worked in nuclear reactors, cleaned up disaster sites, even lived in space stations with inadequate shielding. We can handle this. For how long? Treshkan asked. Long enough, Taejin replied. Give us the forward position. Human ships will lead. We'll navigate the nebula and draw them out. Your fleet can support from the edges, where conditions are safer. The Union commanders argued for hours. It was too risky. It was asking too much. Humanity had already sacrificed enough. But in the end, desperation won again. There was no other choice. The human fleet entered the Corvin Nebula first. 75 ships pushed into the swirling chaos of gas and radiation. Immediately, warning alarms screamed on every vessel. Radiation levels spiked. Navigation systems flickered. The nebula tried to kill them. Shields are holding, Hyun-woo reported, his fingers flying across controls. But they're degrading faster than normal. I'm rotating shield frequencies to distribute the load. Ji-woo wrestled with the helm as a gravitational wave passed through their location. Got it. I'm mapping the anomaly patterns. They're not random. There's a rhythm to it. She's right, Sang-woo added, watching his tactical display. The Vrathul are using the natural anomalies as cover. They position their ships in the calmer pockets and wait for us to stumble into the dangerous zones. Then we don't stumble, Taejin said. Ji-woo, share your navigation data with the fleet. All human ships. Follow the pattern. Hyun-woo, broadcast shield rotation frequencies. If it works for us, it'll work for everyone. The human fleet pushed deeper. Behind them, Union ships followed cautiously, staying at the nebula's edge. The Union commanders watched in amazement as the human vessels navigated through conditions that should have destroyed them. How are they doing that? One Union officer asked. Their ships aren't more advanced than ours. Their shields aren't stronger. No, Velthar replied quietly, watching from the Union flagship. Their entire existence has been learning to function where they shouldn't be able to. This nebula is just another Tuesday for them. 3 days into the operation, the human crews began showing signs of radiation sickness. Haewon moved from ship to ship via shuttle, treating crew members and training medical staff. Her treatment protocols were harsh but effective. You need to rest, she told one engineer, who was vomiting from radiation exposure. Can't, the engineer gasped. If I stop working, our shields fail. Then take this. Haewon injected him with a cocktail of drugs that would have horrified a Union doctor. It'll stop the nausea and keep you functional for another 12 hours. After that, you'll need real medical care. Will I survive? Probably, Haewon said honestly. Maybe 70% chance. But if you don't keep those shields running, we all die. So which do you prefer? The engineer took the injection and went back to work. On the Union command channel, the debate raged. This is insane, one commander protested. The humans are killing themselves to fight in this nebula. We need to order them to retreat. They won't retreat, Do-hyun said calmly. That's not what humans do. We don't retreat from obstacles. We overcome them or die trying. It's a character flaw, probably. But it's gotten us this far. It's madness, the commander insisted. Yes, Do-hyun agreed. We're very good at madness. We. On the 4th day, human scouts located the Vrathul Queen ship. It was massive. 3 times the size of the largest Union vessel, pulsing with organic energy at the nebula's core. Around it, thousands of Vrathul vessels formed a protective swarm. That's the target, Taejin announced on the fleet channel. Kill the Queen. Break the hive mind. The rest of the fleet will collapse without coordination. Captain. Velthar's voice came through, strained with worry. The core of the nebula is even more dangerous than where you are now. Nothing can survive there. Our instruments show radiation levels 10 times higher. Gravitational shear that will tear ships apart. It's certain death. Understood, Taejin said. We're going anyway. Taejin, please, Velthar pleaded. There must be another way. If there is, we haven't found it. Ambassador, you asked us for help because we're from a death world. This is what that means. We go places where death is certain, and we try anyway. That's what Deathworlders do. Taejin looked at his crew. They were exhausted, sick from radiation, injured from the constant battle against the nebula itself. But every single one of them nodded. Jiwoo, Taejin said quietly, if you want to transfer to another ship, I understand. There's no shame in it. Jiwoo laughed, though it turned into a cough. And miss the end? Not a chance, Captain. I've flown us this far. I'll fly us the rest of the way. Hyun-woo? The engineer looked up from his station. My systems are already failing. Might as well see how far they can go before they quit completely. It'll make for good data. MP. Sangwoo? Someone needs to target the weapons when we get there. Might as well be me. Haewon? The doctor appeared on the screen from the medical bay. You're all going to need medical attention after this. I should probably be there. Taejin felt something in his chest. Pride or fear, or maybe both. All right then. One last mission. All ships. This is Captain Taejin. The Times Horizon's Edge Times is going to the core. Any ship that can follow us. We'd appreciate the company. Any ship that can't. We understand. Hold the line here. Whatever happens, don't let the Vrathul escape this nebula. Across the human fleet, captains made their choices. Some ships had taken too much damage. Some crews were too sick. But 37 ships confirmed they were following the Times Horizon's Edge Times into the core. 37, Jiwoo said softly. That's more than I expected. That's humanity, Taejin replied. We're all crazy together. The final push began. 38 human ships drove toward the nebula's heart. The Union fleet could only watch and wait. Ship systems began failing catastrophically. Hulls started melting from the radiation. Crew members collapsed at their stations. But they kept going. Reading multiple ship failures, Hyunwoo reported, his voice weak. 7 ships have lost propulsion. 12 more are critically damaged. Tell them to fire their weapons as they pass the target, Taejin ordered. Every shot counts. The Vrathul finally realized what was happening. Their swarm moved to intercept, but they had made a mistake. They had positioned themselves for defense, not for stopping a suicide run. The human ships weren't trying to survive. They were trying to reach the target before they died. One by one, human ships died. Some were destroyed by Vrathul weapons. Others simply broke apart from the stress. But each one that died took Vrathul ships with them, clearing a path for those behind. The Times Horizon's Edge Times was one of the last ships still functional when they reached the Queen ship. The bridge was barely operational. Emergency lights flickered. The hull was compromised in a dozen places. Half the crew was unconscious. Target locked, Sangwoo whispered. He could barely see through the radiation damage to his eyes. Jiwoo, ram us into that thing, Taejin ordered. Hyunwoo, overload the reactor. Make sure the explosion counts. Sir, Hyunwoo said. The escape pods. Are they functional? Maybe one. Maybe. Get the crew into it. You too. What about you? Someone needs to make sure we hit the target. His crew looked at him. Then Jiwoo shook her head. No. We started this together. We finish it together. That's how humans do it, right, Captain? Taejin wanted to argue, but he was too tired, and they were too stubborn. Together then, the Times Horizon's Edge Times accelerated toward the Queen ship, trailing fire and debris. Around them, the last human ships made their own final runs. The Vrathul threw everything they had at them, but it was too late. The impact was catastrophic. The reactor breach cascaded through the Queen ship's organic systems. The explosion lit up the nebula's core like a newborn star. In that moment, across the galaxy, every Vrathul suddenly stopped moving. The hive-mind connection was severed. The remaining ships became confused, leaderless, vulnerable. The Union fleet, which had been watching in horror, suddenly saw their opportunity and attacked. The Battle of Korvan Nebula was over. The Union had won. But the price was written in human ships, scattered through the nebula like funeral pyres. On the Union flagship, Velthar watched the aftermath in silence. 38 human ships had entered the core. 0 had returned. 312 humans dead. An entire fleet sacrificed. They saved us, High Admiral Treshkin said quietly. They gave everything to save us. Velthar's crystalline body dimmed to near darkness. They were Deathworlders. They knew how to face death. They just chose to face it for us, instead of against us. We feared them, and they still saved us. The message spread through the Union fleet, then through Union space. The humans were gone. The Deathworlders had made their last stand. The galaxy mourned. 3 weeks after the Battle of Korvan Nebula, a faint signal began transmitting from deep within the debris field. At first, the Union scanning teams thought it was just another piece of wreckage sending automated distress calls. Such signals were common in the aftermath of battle. echoing from dead ships long after their crews had perished. But this signal was different. It pulsed with a specific pattern, one that matched human emergency protocols. The scanning team rechecked their instruments 3 times before they believed what they were seeing. Then they sent an urgent message to the Union flagship. Admiral Velthar personally led the rescue operation. His ship navigated carefully through the debris field, following the signal to a small escape pod drifting among the ruins of the Time's Horizon's Edge asterisk. The pod's exterior was scorched black, half melted from radiation exposure. Its systems were barely functional. "There are life signs inside," the sensor operator announced, his voice shaking with disbelief. "Faint, but present. Multiple signatures. How?" Velthar breathed. Nothing could have survived that explosion and this much radiation exposure for 3 weeks. "Ambassador," the operator said quietly, "they're human." The rescue team brought the pod aboard with extreme care. Medical teams stood ready, expecting to find bodies, or perhaps one dying survivor. Instead, when they opened the pod, they found 5 humans: Taejin, Jiwoo, Hyunwoo, Songwoo, and Haewon. Taejin was unconscious, his body ravaged by radiation poisoning. Jiwoo had lost her left arm from severe radiation burns. Songwoo's eyes were damaged, leaving him blind. Hyunwoo had multiple broken bones and internal injuries. Haewon was in the best condition, though that wasn't saying much. "How?" the Union doctor asked, staring at them in shock. "How are they alive?" Haewon, barely conscious, managed to speak. "Life support." Hyunwoo kept it running. "Rationed. Everything. Used my medical supplies. Stayed. Awake." Humans are stubborn. The medical team worked frantically to stabilize them. Union medicine had advanced techniques, but the injuries were so severe that even their best doctors struggled. They had never treated radiation damage this extreme in living patients. Everything they knew said these humans should have died within hours of the exposure. But humans, it seemed, didn't care what should be possible. Velthar stood vigil in the medical bay, watching as the human crew slowly stabilized. The news spread through the Union fleet instantly, then through Union space. The humans weren't dead. They had survived the impossible. Again, the rescue triggered something in the Union populations. The protests stopped overnight. The politicians who had spoken against humanity went silent. Instead, millions of Union citizens gathered in memorial sites that had been erected for the fallen humans. But now the memorials transformed into celebrations. "They live!" became the rallying cry across 100 worlds. When Taejin finally regained consciousness 5 days later, the first face he saw was Velthar's. The crystalline ambassador's body glowed with colors that the translator identified as profound relief. "Captain," Velthar said softly, "you should be dead." Taejin's voice was rough. "Probably. Where's my crew?" "Alive. All of them. Recovering." Taejin closed his eyes for a moment. "Good. That's good. You won. The Vrathul Queen is dead. The hive mind is broken. The remaining Vrathul forces have scattered. The war is over. You saved the galaxy, Captain Taejin." "We," Taejin corrected weakly. "We saved the galaxy. Union and humans. Together." Velthar made a sound like wind chimes, crying, "We judged you so harshly. We called your world a nightmare. We called you monsters. We feared you would conquer us or destroy us. But you chose to die for us instead." "Why?" Taejin was quiet for a long time. "Because we know what it's like to face extinction. Every human knows. Every culture on Earth has stories of disasters, plagues, wars that nearly ended us. We know how precious survival is. When we found out the galaxy was facing that same threat, how could we not help? Well, even though we feared you, especially because you feared us, it meant we had to prove we were worth trusting." had to show that being dangerous and being good aren't opposites. You can be both. Over the following weeks, the human crew slowly recovered. Union medical technology, combined with human stubbornness, worked miracles. Tae-jin's radiation poisoning gradually reversed. Ji-woo was fitted with a prosthetic arm, and she immediately began testing it by practicing piloting maneuvers. Sang-woo's sight couldn't be fully restored, but he adapted with typical human resilience, learning to use sensor feeds directly. The Union Council held an emergency session and voted unanimously. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Union and offered a permanent seat on the Council itself. More than that, they were granted something that had never been given before: the title of Guardians. What does that mean? Tae-jin asked Velthar when they brought him the news. It means the galaxy recognizes what you are. You are dangerous, yes, but you aim that danger outward, toward threats, toward protection of others. You are guardians not because you are gentle, but because you choose to use your strength for defense. Admiral Do-hyun attended the formal ceremony via hologram. He stood before the council, still commanding the human fleet that now patrolled Union space, and made a promise. Humanity accepts this honor, but we also accept the responsibility. We will never use our nature to conquer or dominate. We will be the shield, not the sword. This is our oath. But Do-hyun also had a proposal. The galaxy was unprepared for the Vrathul because you had forgotten what real threats look like. Your worlds are peaceful, and that's beautiful, but it made you vulnerable. I propose we create something new. The Deathworld Initiative. We'll search for other species from harsh worlds, species that, like us, learn to survive against terrible odds. We'll offer them membership, training, and purpose. The galaxy needs more than one Deathworld species protecting it. The Council agreed. Exploration teams began searching for Class 9 through Class 1-2 worlds with intelligent life. The first new species they found was from a water world with massive predators and crushing pressure. The second was from a planet with extreme temperature shifts and toxic atmosphere. Each new species brought their own adaptations, their own survival strategies. The galaxy began to change. Human culture continued spreading, but now it was welcomed rather than feared. Human music played in celebration rather than preparation for battle. Human food, once considered too intense, became fashionable. Human stories of survival and perseverance became teaching tools in Union schools. UNA's engineering principles were adopted across Union shipyards. New vessels were built with redundancy and durability in mind, blending Union efficiency with human toughness. The ships were still beautiful, but now they were also unbreakable. Haewon's medical protocols became standard training. Union doctors learned that sometimes the path to healing involved pain, that survival was more important than comfort, that desperate situations required desperate measures. Jae-sung, the soldier who had shared human music, became a Union cultural ambassador. He traveled to dozens of worlds, teaching Union species about human philosophy, not to make them more like humans, but to help them remember their own capacity for strength. Every species has this inside them, he would say. The will to survive, the refusal to give up. We humans just never forgot it because Earth never let us forget. But you have it too. You just need to remember. Okay. 6 months after the battle, Tae-jin stood on the bridge of the rebuilt Times Horizon's Edge asterisk. The ship had been reconstructed using both human and Union technology. A perfect blend of both philosophies. His crew was with him, all recovered, all ready to continue their mission. Where to, Captain? Ji-woo asked, her new arm moving smoothly as she prepared navigation. Tae-jin looked at the star map. Red markers showed former Vrathul territory, now being reclaimed and rebuilt. Green markers showed Union worlds, safe again. Blue markers indicated unexplored space, where more Deathworlds might wait. Out there, he said, pointing toward the blue regions. There are more species like us. More survivors. More potential guardians. Let's go find them. Sounds dangerous, Songwoo observed. Everything worth doing is dangerous, Taejin replied. On Earth, young Sujin stood in a school classroom, learning about the galaxy that humanity had just joined. Her teacher, a Union citizen who had chosen to live on Earth, told the story of the Battle of Corvin Nebula. The children listened with wide eyes. Were they scared? One child asked. Of course they were scared, the teacher replied. Being brave doesn't mean not being afraid. It means being afraid and choosing to act anyway. That's what Captain Taejin and his crew taught us. That's what all humans taught us. Are humans special? Another child asked. The teacher thought carefully before answering. Humans are adapted to a special world. But what makes them truly special is their choice. They chose to use their strength to protect rather than conquer. Any species can make that choice. That's the real lesson. Above Earth, the combined Union-human fleet patrolled. Human ships and alien ships, side by side, protecting a galaxy that had learned to stand united. The age of isolation had ended. The age of cooperation had begun. And somewhere in unexplored space, on a planet where the gravity was crushing and the storms were deadly and the native life was aggressive beyond imagination, a species looked up at the stars for the first time and wondered if they were alone. They didn't know yet that the galaxy was waiting for them, that humanity was coming to find them. That being from a death world wasn't a curse. It was a gift waiting to be shared. Velthar stood in his office on the Union capital world, looking at a memorial wall. On it were the names of every being who had died in the war against the Vrathul. Millions of names. But at the top, in letters of gold, were 5 names. Taejin, Jiwoo, Hyunwoo, Songwoo, and Haewon. They lived, Velthar said softly to himself, touching the names gently. And because they lived, we all live. The galaxy stood in shock at what Deathworlders could do. Now we stand in awe of what they chose to do. A human diplomat entered the office. One of the new council representatives. Ambassador Velthar? They're ready for the next council session. Velthar, 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 coming, Velthar said. He took one last look at the memorial, then followed the human out. The galaxy had been saved not by its most advanced species, not by its most powerful weapons, not by its most brilliant strategies. It had been saved by survivors who refused to let others face extinction alone, by Deathworlders who chose to be guardians, by humans who proved that strength and compassion could exist in the same heart. And in learning that lesson, the galaxy had become stronger than it had ever been before. Different species, different worlds, different philosophies, all united not despite their differences but because of them. The Union had feared what humanity represented. Now they understood that humanity represented hope. The stars shone brighter that night, across 1,000 worlds. And on all of them, people looked up and knew they were not alone. They were protected. They were part of something greater. They were citizens of a galaxy that had learned to stand together. The war was over. The rebuilding had begun. And the future, for the first time in years, looked bright. Because when Deathworlders rescued the galaxy, they didn't just save lives. They saved the idea that different peoples could choose to be better together than they ever could be apart. And that was the greatest victory of all.